Okay, welcome to the Fashion in Florence conversation with POLIMODA. We are really excited to be partners and friends with POLIMODA. They have a lot to educate us about today, but I wanted to welcome everyone to the call. We're going to be discussing the amazing fashion scene in Florence, Italy, as well as ways that students specifically can get involved to study abroad. I personally studied abroad and I was in Italy, and I think that it is one of the most life-changing experiences to get to learn about other cultures, especially in such a hub of fashion. So I'm going to turn it over to Nicolo and Davide, who are going to explain a little bit about themselves and then get the conversation started with us.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brianna.
Welcome. Thank you, Brianna. Welcome to everybody to this conversation. And Davide is my colleague. We work in POLIMODA Fashion School. Davide, please, if you want to introduce yourself, please.
All right. So, hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. Nicolo and I were speaking about this webinar last week, and we're really pleased to share with you a little bit about Florence. And as Brianna said, Italy is an incredible country, and Florence particularly is a really special city for multiple reasons, and we're going to get into that. My role at POLIMODA is I'm one of the professors, so I teach consumer behavior, retail management, and hiring and developing talent. Aside from that, I do consulting, so I consult fashion companies on collection development. I also help some startups when they're entering the fashion industry. Before teaching, I worked mainly as a luxury fashion buyer and a high-end fashion buyer for a Canadian women's wear company. So in fact, I'm North American. My cultural background is Italian-Canadian. So parts of the year, I'm closer to you guys. I spend 6 months in Montreal normally, and the other part of the year here in Florence. Right now I'm in Florence. So I'm in a small classroom. There might be some noise from a class that's happening. There's a merchandising class happening right behind me. So if you hear some numbers being shared and some designer names such as Prada and Gucci, it's because my colleague is teaching a merchandising class. And that's a little bit about me. And yeah, Nicolo, you share a bit about you.
Yeah. Well, I am Nicolo Paraglia. I'm the commercial director in POLIMODA. I am a professor too. I'm teaching Capital Business. Basically, I work in fashion since 2007 and as a product manager. I used to produce, I'm an expert of leather and leather goods and leather jacket. I used to work for Kering Group. Kering is the owner of Gucci, Saint Laurent, Alexander McQueen, and many other luxury fashion brands. So I'm connecting the creativity of the designers to the production system in the factory. I think it's one of the best jobs in the fashion system because this has allowed you to spend time with the creative people, but also with the artisans, with the artisanality in Florence, which is very strong. And then this is what I teach to my students. David and I represent the 100% of the professor in POLIMODA. They are expert in fashion, they work in fashion, and then we teach what we do to our students. So I think we are ready to start, David, right?
Perfect. Yes. Okay. So I have a few questions that I'm going to be asking Nicolo, and we're essentially going to share with you some of our thoughts and our views based on our experience with students and just also being in Florence. Like Brianna, I studied in Florence when I was much younger. And my background's Italian, so for me, I felt like I came home. And this was an incredible period of my life. And I always knew I would come back to Italy and Florence at some point. And in 2016, I did, when I started teaching at POLIMODA. And as somebody, like I said, I share this in common with most of you, coming from North America, that has changed my life and has changed my career. But now, Nicolo, let's ask a real Florentine. So you're from here.
So yeah, but I lived 8 years in New York, so I'm also partially American. This is what I like to say. Yes. Anyway, please go ahead. Thank you.
So we're an international makeup over here. So Nicolo, from a Florentine's point of view, why do you think so many people come to Florence and fall in love with the city and the territory of Tuscany?
This is a good question. The first answer that came out in my mind is that Florence is a very beautiful city. It's a small city, very beautiful, where the most important artists, creative people in the Renaissance used to work. Florence is also the capital of the food and the wine, which is another important aspect. And for the artisanal aspect, I mean, the artisans and the manufacturing in Florence is something really important. It's a city where it's very easy to live because it is a small city. You can go around by walk, as you know, or you can get a bicycle. Florence is in between Milan and Rome. Florence is the original capital of the fashion system in Italy, because Florence started to talk about fashion in the 16th centuries. And you can easily reach Milan in 1.5 hours by train, because we have the fast train in Italy, or same things for Rome. In 1 hour and 45 minutes, you can reach Rome. You can go to the beach, to the sea in 45 minutes. Then we are surrounded by hills, and we have the mountain in 1 hour. So I think also the point that Florence is an international city with people coming from different cultures, different countries. This is really important. And the richness of the art, the culture is full of museums where you can see the most iconic art from the David, the statues, which is one of the most famous statues, and the Uffizi Museum. We are collaborating, as you know, with Uffizi, because the manager of Uffizi are coming and teaching in POLIMODA too. And I think these are the main reasons why, especially Americans, fall in love for Florence. It's a mix of, it's a combination of facts and also the mood of the city, as you know, because you are Florentine too now, Davide, realistically, after many years.
I've become an adopted Florentine, which is my wish in
Yes,
1999.
yes.
But I think,
yes.
yeah, you touch upon the experience I had. In fact, like I came here in 1999, so a long time ago for the first time. And being such a small city, I think for me, my friends, and whoever I've spoken to, who's fallen in love with Florence, is that within a couple of days, you do feel like you know it.
Yeah.
And it's a city, so it offers a lot of the excitement of a bigger city, right? From the shopping, we have all the flagship stores here, from Prada to Gucci. They also have multiple stores.
Exactly.
You have nightlife, you have the culinary scene, and then you have, and it's all like easy to reach because it's so small. So you feel this sense of like you understand the city really quickly, and I think that is quite unique. The other thing, like you mentioned, you have the culture, you have the tradition with food, and then you have the natural landscape, which I think for so many people, this is an incredible richness that within 45 minutes you can get to the mountains or get to the sea, which is quite unique. I mean, coming from Montreal.
Also the wine valley, because the Chianti area, it's in a beautiful area. Also our students, they go to spend the weekend there in 20 minutes by car or by bus. You can go in that amazing area. You can have wine tasting, oil tasting. And so I think these are all part of the value added of Florence. So yes, this is for sure.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think there's the romance with all of those activities that happens, whether you're cycling up to Chianti or walking through the streets of Florence and suddenly seeing a statue that amazes you, is something that very few cities offer.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, I think we could talk about wine and food and art as the whole webinar, but I think many of our guests want to hear about the relationship with Florence and fashion, right? So what makes Florence this such a special city?
But it's also true, sorry if I interrupt you, it's also true that the Florentine fashion brands are investing a lot of money also in the winery business. So even Ferragamo, which is the president of Ferragamo, basically it's our boss, has its own wine production, and Prada did the same. So there is also a strong link between wine and fashion. So we had fun about that, but it's realistically part of the culture too. Sorry, Davide, if I interrupt you.
No, but it's a good point. It's a good point. Also, the fashion, you know, is connected to so many other industries, which we talk about in many of our courses. But more specifically, so maybe we can tell our guests here what the relationship is between Florence and the luxury fashion industry. So a little bit more specific, like why is Florence such an important city when it comes to luxury fashion, and also being in Tuscany?
Okay, I think this is a very important point, which is part of the DNA of this city, specifically the manufacturing, because when we talk about luxury, we talk about a product, a really high-end product in terms of quality. Luxury for us is not necessarily the opposite of poverty, it's the opposite of vulgarity, and specifically luxury is something related to the rarity, to the quality, to the exclusivity. But of course, a luxury product that's made by someone, and this someone is an artisan. And there is this strong relationship between artisanality and Florence. At the end of the Middle Age, so medieval, Middle Age, at the beginning of the Renaissance, because Florence is the cradle of the Renaissance, Florence was famous because it was the richest city in Europe, more than Paris, more than London at that time. So I'm talking about 600, 700 years ago. And at that time, because the economic system was very rich, very big in Florence, the local people used to be very rich and very demanding. They used to ask for high-end products in furniture, fashion jewelry, clothing. So the artisans start to increase the techniques to implement the quality of the product in order to satisfy the demand present in the market. So step by step, artisanality became the main and the key concept of the city. And it's still like that today. So this strong relationship is still present. And one of the most beautiful things is to get lost in the center of the city, in this small medieval street, where you can see the artisans working in this small boutique, working in a piece of wood or piece of metal. And you fall in love because you can see that it's not artificial, it's original, something that they do every day. It's part of the lifestyle of the city.
It's interesting. I love it. Every time I speak to you, I learn something new. So this is a nice exchange. But so essentially, it was almost like the Florentine had expectations that the artisan had to meet, because of this period of extreme wealth and power in society and globally. And this is amazing. So the consumer, the Florentine, essentially dictated from a point of view of like expectations to get the quality and from the nobles in the town. Okay. How about like, which makes sense. And actually I was, I had a webinar a couple of weeks ago with a previous student, and she was saying too, like, she was from France, she's from France, and she came to study in Florence at POLIMODA. And she said one of her biggest takeaways was the working to be precise and like always striving for extreme excellence. And this is something that, is part of the DNA of the town, and we see it in this.
The obsession for quality and details. Florentine are obsessed with quality, details, they take care about every single aspect in production. No way,
And connecting that to the luxury industry, there's no compromise when we're looking at quality. In fact, it's always about improving the quality and getting it to another level. And so having this as a fundamental understanding makes sense why luxury and Florence are so tied. Perhaps maybe, because I think some people don't realize how much of the production actually happens in Tuscany. So for those of you who may not know, so Florence is the capital of Tuscany. So, Tuscany is the province essentially. So right outside of Florence, you have a lot of factories, and most of the big companies are here, right? Dior,
exactly.
Burberry,
The majority of the people in the world are still thinking that Milan is the capital of the fashion system, Paris, London, let me say, also New York, but where the top luxury fashion brands, French, Italian, and English, are located are in Florence. So they have the legal headquarters in London, Paris, Milan, or New York, but the production headquarters are based in Florence. So Gucci is a Florentine brand, has a Ferragamo, Roberto Cavalli, they are from Florence as a Pucci. But even Prada, which is from Arezzo, they say Prada Milan because Miuccia Prada is from Milan. The main production system, also Louis Vuitton, Givenchy, Celine, Chanel, Alexander McQueen, Burberry from London, they all have the factories in Florence because, again, the connection with the artisanality, the DNA for the obsession of quality is in this city. And this is why we are constantly bringing our students to the factory. They can see the collection even before to be launched in the market. They can see the entire production process from the very beginning. So from the sketch of the designer, going through the modeling, prototyping, sampling until the approval, and then the production. And you can find the biggest leather district in the world in Florence. The leather is 100% recycled from food industry, because in Italy, no one is killing animal for fashion purpose. And this is a very important aspect, because nowadays, for example, leather is largely the most sustainable product in fashion. Unfortunately, there is a lot of greenwashing, you know. This is made sometimes also from mass market fashion brands. They say to the young generation, how you should buy synthetic food, sustainable food. It doesn't exist. Sustainable food is synthetic, it's polyurethane, it's plastic. So don't buy, because it's largely the most polluting product in the market. You should buy a real food, which is lamb food, recycled from food industry. And thanks to the technology, especially to the laboratory that you can find in this territory, they are very advanced. You can personalize the food in zebra effect, the leopard effect, without to kill zebra and leopard, of course. And you can learn the sustainability here in Florence related to fashion, because sustainability, most of the time, it's related to the product, to the production. So, which is not just an output, is a philosophy. And this is the area where fashion brands are investing billions of euro or dollars, as you want to say, in order to implement the sustainability in product and in production. So Florence represented the perfect deck to study, especially for a young person, for sure. I hope I answered to your question.
Yeah, absolutely. So a few takeaways from what you said. So that know-how, that knowledge that exists, is getting passed on from generation to generation. The investment that continues to happen in Florence and Tuscany regarding the manufacturing processes and so on is really important. And yeah, you bring up a really good point also regarding the subject of sustainability. It's really, the quality of the product makes a big difference on how sustainable it is. And so here, where there's this essentially an obsession with reaching the highest level of quality, well, that mindset, that methodology of working already is a better starting point when we're trying to achieve sustainable goals.
Yes, totally.
And then I think also the fact that you highlighted, so again, most of the companies have factories here. So whether it's the Florentine companies such as Gucci, but as you mentioned, Prada, Burberry, and the list goes on, all have manufacturing happening here. So as a result, the city is filled with a lot of talent from a point of view of technology, creativity, and craft.
Yes, it's the design valley, the production valley is all here. It's all here. Italy nowadays is the only country in the world with the entire fashion galaxy represented, because France lost the production district in the 80s. England lost the production district even before, in the 60s and the 70s. So that's why they're producing here. The 95% of the international luxury fashion brands are made in Italy. For this reason, because you need to find the right factors. And one of the characteristics of the Tuscany factories, Italian factory, but specifically Tuscany factory, is the sites. They're very small with few employees, very high-end specialized, So to have 20 employees is a big standard. Is a big number for the Italian standard, 20 employees in a factory is medium big for the Italian standard. Because again, if you want to produce luxury, it's about quality and not quantity. So you need high-end expert.
Yeah, okay. And it's interesting because it's not just in fashion where we could learn regarding that quality expertise. It's also in the other art forms and product design. So whether you're going to learn or consume something else, you'll learn from that mindset of excessive, obsession with quality and producing things at its best value. And it was actually, I remember, I think it was 2016 or 2017. I was getting off a plane, and there was a very important designer on that same plane. We were both coming from Paris and landing in Florence, because even the designers come to go to the factories and do some of their checks of their products and tests.
Exactly.
And so this was a designer from Dior Women's. And so we also have some of those big, star designers that have to come to Florence, which creates a certain synergy in the city as well. I think it's interesting.
But even if you want to be a marketing manager in the fashion system or communication manager, you have to be in contact with product. Otherwise, you don't know what to communicate, how to describe a product. I mean, even if you want to work in the business side of the fashion system, you have realistically be in contact with the factories. And the majority of the fashion brands in the world, they start up the brand thinking about the budget for communication, marketing, the name of the brand, and then as the last point, it's the product and the production system. This should be the opposite. You have to take care about, first of all, you have to find the right factory to develop your idea. Otherwise, your creativity without a right interpreter is nothing. It's just an idea. Yeah. If you don't find the right artisans, the right factories able to translate your creativity, which is intangible, which is in 2-dimensional, because maybe it's in a sketch in a piece of paper, you have to find the right people able to transform in 3-dimensional product. If you don't find this characteristic, you cannot talk about fashion, Yeah,
and it's actually just made me think, like, in our consumer behavior class, we look a lot at Generation Z, like many people do. And more of that younger consumer wants to know what's going on behind the scenes, but no longer just the behind the scenes of designing and staging a show. I want to know about where you're producing. And so having that is becoming even a part of the marketing, is making sure that the team, everybody, the consumer knows where you're producing, who's producing it, how those factories look, and so on. So it's actually quite interesting what you're saying. Okay, so my next question is regarding the students now, because I think a lot of people are curious to know, how will I benefit if I come to Florence and I take that, make that decision? What do fashion students gain and benefit from choosing to study in a city like Florence compared to other fashion capitals, right? So there's other cities in the world that are considered fashion capitals, but what do they get here? Yeah, you already mentioned maybe a few things, but maybe we could summarize.
But it's correct to spend more time on this point, because this is fundamental, especially when you are young. As you said, the Z generation are very demanding. They want to know what related to fashion, where fashion brands are producing, how they produce, what kind of materials they produce. And again, in this city, this kind of information are accessible. And you are going to have your personal grow up, because again, let me summarize again the main point. In Florence, you are connected with art, museum, manufacturing, creativity, design, production. Manufacturing production are similar, but not exactly the same, because manufacturing is something related specifically more in one product. Production is how to replicate this product in several units. Okay. Then is an international city, because we have a big international communities here in Florence. Is the perfect city when you can enrich yourself. You can have your personal growth as a person and as a professional person. So when you go back home after an experience in Florence, you're going to understand what does it mean quality, what does it mean luxury. They're not anymore just keywords for Instagram or social media. They become part of your lifestyle. These aspects are going to penetrate your body, your mind, and you start to live in this way. This is what our student says, for example, after an experience of 9 months in Florence for a master, or 4 years for an undergraduate in Florence. Because it's true, the Italian culture, as you know, because you are Italian too, is so strong so strong that you don't even know how it's entering in you. Because if you go and you walk in the city, you know, everything is an input. Even if you don't pay attention, is, you know, the input is influencing you. Because the Italian lifestyle, the Florentine lifestyle, it's tangible. Even if it's intangible, it becomes tangible. And you realize this as soon as you go back home.
Yeah. It's such a good point. It's just, as you're talking, I was thinking about like, what did I gain from it as a student when I came here when I was much younger, and you like you said, a tangible lifestyle, you know, and you learn so much, you absorb it sometimes even without recognizing that that's happening, and then you bring it back with you. I also think something like, even just looking at, you know, other cities, and they're great, you know, we travel a lot, you travel, I travel. The fact that Florence offers so many different creative and cultural activities, but it's accessible from a space point of view, right? So
Exactly.
if I, you know, wake up or finish school, let's say today, after this webinar, I'm pretty much done my work day, and I say, let me go see what Gucci put in their window. It's on my walk home. So I don't necessarily need to get on a metro or, you know, get into the tube or the subway to go do some of the research.
Exactly.
So just that within the city, I think, is really, really special, especially as, you know, when working, whether it's on the business side or more on the craft creative side in fashion, you need to be constantly researching. And so the fact that the research is accessible from a distance point of view, I think this is unique. And it's not to put down other cities, but time is always a challenge. Now, for when students want that bigger city feel, as you said, Milan is an hour and a half train ride away.
Yeah.
Paris, a 1 hour flight away. Copenhagen is an hour and 40 minutes or an hour and a half. And so we're located in a part of Europe that connects us to some of the other great fashion capitals. And then in our own smaller, beautiful, pretty, rich town, we have also what we need for research. So I think this is quite unique. And also the fact that you're doing most of your commuting by foot or by bicycle adds for a very pleasant day without the chaos of sometimes the bigger cities from a point of view of fashion.
When you have to live in a city, this is make the difference. If you are just a tourist, maybe not. But when you have to live in a city, exactly what you said, make the difference, because you don't have to get the subway or taxi or car. You can go by walk, by bicycle. You can reach all the part of the city in 10 minutes. It's true. You can stop to the Gucci restaurant, the new Gucci restaurant, which is another amazing experience. How to translate the identity of the fashion Gucci in the food of Gucci. It's another experience. It's another, you know, journey. Totally. You can see the layout of the boutique. They are constantly changing because, you know, fashion in Italy, it's you know, it's important everywhere, but in Italy, you know, it goes even fast, you know? So the creativity, it's an actor, important actor when we talk about fashion. So the layout of the boutique change constantly, but not the city, because it's an historical city. So the layout of the city is the same, not the layout of the boutique, not the layout of the restaurant. So there is this.
Which is also really nice. That's nice, because I think for whoever, and maybe, I don't know, you know, Brianna, where you came to in Italy, but there's something about these towns that you could not, like, you could come study here, visit, and go back 10 years later, and you feel like you're home. Once you've experienced an Italian city, especially the ones like Florence, you always feel at home because the architecture doesn't change. So sometimes, you know, the stores may change, they evolve, but the architecture and that old world medieval charm is forever. And this is quite particular. I think also another thing that's worth mentioning is the community that gets created. So when you're in a smaller city and, you know, everything is walking distance, you run into your classmates, you run into your friends, you run into acquaintances quite a bit. And so developing a real life community is quite possible in a city like Florence. So for students, I think, you know, when I think back to that period of my life, the memories we made are something that, you know, when you're young and when you're a bit more mature, you look back and say, oh, that was so precious. And that's possible in a city like Florence, because some of those challenges compared to living in bigger cities are removed, right? You're not waiting for a metro or a subway, you're not dealing with that traffic, and you have time to study, to research, to socialize. And as a student, I think that's the best, right?
The socialize point, that's another key concept. Let me say key concept. The socializing point is really important in Florence. I mean, realistically, after 3-4 months, you can meet a Florentine people, because Florence, again, is smaller city, more or less the lifestyle is the same. So you can find me in the same pub or the same restaurant. So, hey, I know I saw that guy before, 1 week before, and then, Italians, they, we talk a lot. We like to meet people, to start talking about everything, movie, fashion, because we love fashion. So it's very easy to have like 50 new Florentine friends after 3 months the experience in Florence, for sure. I mean, very easy. Probably at the very beginning, people, they're not international people, they're not even, I mean, they are like, they're kind of surprised, because you know how we are, no? Even in the street, we stop people, hey, hi, and maybe people, they watch you, hey, what this guy is talking about, what he wants. But it's part of our culture, no? We stop people, we start to talk even in the bus or in the... So also this aspect is fundamental, I think. For us, it's normal, because we grow up here, we born here. So, but for people coming from abroad, they get this point as a value added.
Yeah, I was just talking to some friends in Montreal the other day, and today we have a beautiful day in Florence, so the weather's getting nicer. But last week there was a few cold days, and I was like, socializing, spontaneous socializing is such a key part of being here, because I don't need to make plans, but on my way home from work, I may socialize by just walking back, right?
Yes.
See a student, and they're like, "Hey, prof," and then you run into a friend, and you may stop to have an aperitivo with them. And this really adds to the richness of being here. And again, when you're moving abroad, I think this is so nice that all this spontaneous socializing that happens. But you make me want to ask another question about the network.
Yeah.
Because as we were talking about, Florence is a city that you have so many people coming here for work, are based here, and so on. And POLIMODA as well is quite unique from that point of view, is that
Totally.
It offers a very rich network that the students could benefit from later on in their careers, right? Maybe one of their classmates is already in the business, or their parents have a brand, or
the professors.
The professors, exactly. So maybe we could highlight that a bit. Like, for students, what should they know as far as when coming to Florence? Like, why is networking so important?
Yes, it's too important. Again, now we are here talking about fashion, and if you spend an experience in POLIMODA, it's a very human-centered school, POLIMODA. No, as you know, we have small classes with 20 students. We know the name of our students one by one. And then all the professors in POLIMODA are really working in fashion. They are not theoretical professors, so they can offer any job opportunity. I mean, I hire 8 of my students in the past years working for me, and then they enter working for Fendi and for Gucci. So the network is really important. Fashion brands are part of the board of directors of POLIMODA. Professors are working in fashion brands like Gucci, Saint Laurent. They are international professors coming all over the world. You are from Canada, even if you are Italian, and then professor coming from France, from England, from Russia, American professor. I mean, my colleagues are from United States too. So the network is really important. And again, since the size of the city is small, it's much more easy to increase the network because we are in contact naturally, okay? So, and again, we tend to talk. We, in Italy in general, we express ourselves, it's part of the culture. So it's easy to understand what is my job. You don't have to make an investigation. In a natural conversation, it came out after 5 minutes. Hey, I do this, I'm in fashion, I'm in the automotive, I work in restaurants, and stuff like that. It's, let me say that you can build in a natural network, in a very natural network that then can be used for professional reasons. I mean, for business and this stuff. You know how many times students are at the end of the course, after 2-3 years, they went back home, they are still contacting us, they are still comparing their opinion with us. Hey, prof, would you please tell me, is it possible to find this in Florence? Can we do this? Can we do that? It's a natural process. It's done really spontaneously.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. You said something that's really interesting. Sometimes, like in other parts of the world, it's normal. You might feel like you missed an opportunity because you didn't exchange your business card or your LinkedIn account with somebody, and you know the odds of seeing them again are very little. Whereas in Florence, because of that smaller city, no, actually, it's the opposite. You're probably going to run into that person in about 2 days. Don't worry about it. And so it allows for this organic relationship building, because sometimes some people, we know the benefit of the network, but when it's forced, you know, it could look a little bit like opportunist. Not everybody likes that, and not everybody's good at that. Not everybody has that ability to go up to you like, hey, I'm Davide and I do this. How can I help you? And so here, because of that, seeing people often, that social aspect to the city allows for organic networking. And this is quite unique and very important because, you know, I was just thinking about, I remember I got called to go work at Hyder Ackerman at one point, and I couldn't go. So, you know, occasionally I'll do showrooms for luxury brands, and I couldn't go. And I thought, well, I feel bad to leave them in this gap. And so I asked one of my top students.
Right.
And today he's still working. He's working at the Mühlenmeister now, but the Mühlenmeister and Hyder Ackerman were part of the same group. And they liked him. So it was basically like an interview for him. Right. He went there to Paris for a week, worked, did well, and then they offered him a full-time job. And the Mühlenmeister, he's still there. So that, whether it's with your professors, this is an example I have where I was able to help someone out. Well, he helped me out in a way because I didn't want to let them down, but I also helped them out. And there's so many of these connections that happen in the city.
Automatically, spontaneously, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, totally.
So you mentioned a few things about POLIMODA, and I do want to talk about like the school a little bit more. You mentioned that the teachers are working professionals for the most part. You know, teachers are combining their work outside of school and teaching, so it always feels very fresh and up to date. The material evolves, so it's very dynamic curriculum too. You mentioned the small classes. What else? You know, we've both been at POLIMODA for a long time now. What would you say? What are some of the other characteristics about POLIMODA that make it so unique as a fashion institute?
But for example, we have the biggest fashion library in Europe. This is another aspect which is open to all the students in Florence and not just for POLIMODA students, because we are talking about culture, we are talking about books. So, and then POLIMODA is a no-profit university. So the goal is not to make money, but the goal is to train the new generation of fashion operators. And the human point of view, as you know, it's what makes POLIMODA different from other school in general. I don't want to say just fashion school, for sure. Then, as you said, the programs are very fresh because they are constantly changing. If the fashion system go fast, the didactics, the education in the fashion system is going even faster. That's why it's mandatory to change the program. That's why you cannot study fashion with the book. We have the library, the biggest library in Europe, in order to make research, which is important. You cannot just do it on Google. But it's also important that the professors are going to teach through their own experience. So they make the didactic document for the students. So they're not just based on book, hey, students, you have to read this, you have to read that. No, they are making the didactic. So the didactic formula in POLIMODA is something really advanced, which is strictly related to the professional aspect of the professor. So professors are selected in base of the humanity, in base of the experiences, so not just the professional curriculum, also the way you approach the students, the way you talk to them. And this is what students say about POLIMODA. They don't want to go, when they finish the experience in POLIMODA, they don't want to leave. This is also because we are cuddling. How do you say in English when we cuddle? When we coccolare.
There's a certain affection and a closeness.
Yes.
It's not cuddling. Cuddling is not because, but it's more like I don't know. I think coddling maybe. I don't know, Brianna. Maybe you could help out. I have like 3 languages in my head between French, Italian, and English.
Yes.
But there's a warmth. There's a warmth.
Yeah, more of an interpersonal approach is what I
Right.
And I think this is cultural. Like the Italian way is still very warm and affectionate with words.
Yes.
And so,
then POLIMODA is an international hub because, as you know, every week we have some special guests coming, from fashion brands, but not just fashion brands, international journalists. The fact that all the courses in POLIMODA are in collaboration with the top fashion brands, Gucci, Bali, then we collaborate with Louis Vuitton, and then the most important, we are POLIMODA. Another aspect which is very important, we are the only school partner of the United Nations in New York, because we are part of the network Fashion and Conscious Lifestyle, which is the office full dedicated to sustainability in the United Nations in New York. And they are also our partner in the International Fashion Business Masters. We are collaborating with Microsoft in United States, for example. So Mike Pell, which is the inventor of the PDF, the Adobe Read, is coming constantly in POLIMODA, teaching to the students. And a person with an amazing experience like him transferring this know-how to the students is an amazing opportunity for them. The international guests are for sure another important aspect in POLIMODA. Yes, and then also the director of POLIMODA, as you know, Massimiliano, is one of the most famous creative directors in the world. He was, it's a very humble person. He go directly to teach to students. He spent time, he's the director of the most prestigious Italian fashion institute, and he goes in the class with the students to make review for collection because it's passion. So he used to work with the most important celebrity in Hollywood, in Rome, in Paris. He worked for Ferragamo for many years, and now it's spending time with the student, transferring the experience. I think this is the main aspect of POLIMODA. Yes, the way we approach the didactics is very spontaneous.
Yeah, and I think that passion that many of the professors want to express, and they do that by being generous with the students as far as the knowledge transfer.
For me, it's the best job I ever had in my life. Spend times with the students. So honestly, I lived in New York. I worked in New York at the top level in the fashion system. I produced bags for the top fashion brands in the world, collaborating with top designers in the world. But honestly, Davide, when we spend times with the students, it's also a way to stay young, That's why we get a lot of energy from them, and they teach to them they teach to us many things. So it's not just what we teach to them, it's also what they teach to us. They force us to be very updated too, to find that's why it's the best job. When we go home, we are still making research, studying. Let me see, how can I explain this to the students? It's something that makes your brain alive and young.
I wholeheartedly agree with you. Like for me too, it's like
you are still young. I lost my, I'm bald. You are still young, It's,
I was gonna say, and I think you're the one that gives the energy to the students, because more energy than you have yet to see anybody have. That exchange that happens is amazing. I know from my class, and I believe your classes are similar, I follow a conversational educational approach. So of course, in my material, there's always time dedicated to the theory that I must share and exchange, but there's a large chunk of the classroom that's exchange and conversation, because it's so enriching and we both learn, and this industry thrives on exchange and sharing of information and of ideas and opinions and so on. And
it's true.
I love it. Me too. I don't go home tired after work.
Right. I think that also because the topics, it's fashion. So also you know, in the class we have this several conversation, which is a discussion, no? When we compare different opinion, no? The students do that in a very natural way, because fashion, it's about religion, it's about politics, it's about how you study the society. POLIMODA, it's a very social cultural school. So we teach to our students also psychology, sociology, how to read the modern society, how to interpret it, what's going on in the world, how COVID is affecting fashion system, how the war between Russia and Ukraine, let me say Russia and Europe and the United States, because it's not just related to Russia and Ukraine. How can we have Russian students, we have Ukrainian students, they are helping each other. This is another beautiful aspect that nobody was expecting. So this is part of the natural conversation. And probably because fashion is going to open mind, you know, to open the mind of the people. And it's a natural process.
Yeah, and something that I don't know if we highlighted, but I do want to highlight to everybody that POLIMODA offers a variety of courses. So there's also, we have three buildings, but the two main ones that you probably see a lot on our website and so on is we have the Villa Favar, which is mainly the business faculty. And so there you have students with aspirations to work in marketing, buying, product management, and so on. And then we have Manifattura Tabacchi, which is essentially where design happens. So we have all of these different disciplines in the industry. And so there's a lot of choice for the students to also see what suits them best. Because that's the thing with the fashion industry, it's huge. And there are so many different amazing jobs in this industry. And in fact, at our institute, at POLIMODA, we offer a variety of disciplines for the students to choose from and also find themselves in it. I know for myself, even like this, when I was younger, trying to figure out what part of the industry would I be suited for. And it turns out that it was really about buying finished goods, luxury. And something before my last question, I want to say something about the city, POLIMODA as well. For anybody who has an appreciation for beauty and excellence, I think there's no other city that really allows for that to be expressed, and especially
the sense of aesthetic. You really increase the sense of aesthetic because you are surrounded by beauty.
Well, for me, I think I told you, Nicola, this. For me, it's been such a, from when I came the first time to even today, and then every time I go back to North America, I always feel enriched from the architecture, from the paintings, from the museums, and this is something that I can't even express how valuable it is.
Yeah, but I think I'm not saying because I'm not saying this because I'm Italian. Really, you know me. But honestly, the most beautiful thing I made in Italy in terms of luxury cars, yacht, interior design, fashion. I mean, realistically, the sense of aesthetic is something really important. If you grow up, you're born in Italy, you receive input from, again, if you walk in the street, you receive input about the statues are original, are in the street, they're not even a copy, they are original statues from the Renaissance there in the square. And you receive this input. You enter in one of the million churches that we have in Florence with the original painting by Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci, or the Donatello. So for us, it's, you take it for granted because you're born here, and for us it's normal. So as soon as you move in another city where the layout is different, immediately this is come out in front of you. And you realize how different it is. For example, you know how much I'm in love for New York, but New York is not beautiful. New York is fantastic, which is another thing. New York is fantastic and no one can touch New York because I become very, protective with New York, but we cannot say that New York is beautiful. We say that New York is fantastic for many reasons. Florence isn't a beautiful city because the layout, it's, when you go to Piazzale Michelangelo and you see the city, you connect yourself with the brain. You say, you breathe in, you breathe out, because the layout, when you are in front of something that is nice, you feel even better. And this is the sense of fashion too, no? You buy product because you don't need it. You buy because you feel better because you like yourself, no? When you are mirroring it, you say something that you like it, you feel even better. Doesn't matter if the other people, they watch you with the same eyes that you watch yourself, right?
Yeah.
So it's I think it's the same track, it's the same line, thread.
Okay, so I think we have room for one more. I'm gonna ask you one more question, Nicolo, and then I
Yeah,
believe there might be some questions that the guests may have for
I
us.
hope. I hope.
So I think definitely, if everybody, you obviously see the passion from a Florentine. That's why Nicolo is here, because he is the example of this Florentine passion for fashion, art, and so on. If anybody here with us today, you know, I think Brianna, you were even saying there's some people in high school that are going to be watching this later. So, what advice would you give to somebody who's watching this or watching this later and debating, maybe a little bit scared on like whether they should make that leap, you know, invest in themselves and say, okay, I'm going to leave my hometown where I have the comfort of my family, my friends, and my sports and my favorite, you know, ice cream shop. We didn't talk about the ice cream at Florence, but I guess that would be another webinar. But
Okay.
what did I just remembered? I was like, we didn't talk about gelato. What advice would you be to somebody 20 years old, 17 years old, 19, 22, who's not sure, maybe feeling a little bit scared? What advice would it be to give them regarding going and study abroad?
Well, this is an important question. It's for me, right? This question,
Yeah, yes,
Davide,
yes,
or
yes, yes,
you?
yes.
It's
So what's
right.
your
Okay.
advice? I got
This is an
distracted by the
important
last
question.
one, so I
I
went to
mean,
the
if you really want to have if you really want to grow up, you need to have an experience, an international experience. And no way, you don't have to be scared. Oh my God, what's going to happen? I go in Italy, in France, in England. What's going to happen to me? What's going to happen to you? You're going to become much more mature as a person because it's important to study. It's much more important to travel, to be contaminated, culturally contaminated by other culture. And I hope you're going to be surrounded by people with different opinion than you, because this is the best way to, to protect your project, even your business. Even your business, you don't have to have business partner with the same idea than you. You have to have a business partner with different opinion. In this way, the project is going to be vaccinated. All the time you're going to maybe encounter some problems. If you have different approach, different point of view, the problem is going to be solved. And if you go in a country with different culture, different language, different opinion than you, this is what's happened to me when I moved to New York. I grew up. I became a man. That's true. Then there was also a professional experience, but the personal experience was much more important. So I encourage you to travel as much as you can, and I encourage you to open your hands to people. Was my experience, and I was very lucky because I met great people, including you, Davide. No, we became friends. We met in Polimoda. After 2 hours, I said, "Okay, David is another one part of the family," because the feeling, huh? And you know, so this is what I can suggest to the new generation, but not necessarily to young generation. Even people they are more mature. I mean, travel and don't be scared. Don't watch too much television and don't watch too much social media.
Yeah. You know, as somebody, and now I tell you, I'll give the students, the guests here, my thoughts on this. My first big international trip, I was 19, and I was going to come to Italy with my best friend Lisa. And I still remember the day that we had to go pay our deposit. We stopped for coffee before in Montreal, and we were like, should we do this? Maybe not. Do something else with our money. Well, we both came, we did it, and still to this day, the best memories of my life are that summer in Florence. I cannot take away, I remember everything so perfectly. And there was no social media at the time. We didn't have mobile phones. I mean,
Right.
we were using, you know, paying 25 euro cents, whatever it is. And then I did it again later in my career. I moved for work. And I have to tell you, to my North American peers here, for the fashion industry, I have grown so much by coming to Europe. And I have to say, really with my hands and my eyes. I understand fabric to the neck. And I was working in high end in Canada. So I was exposed to, you know, the best. But there's something else I learned about craft. I learned about longevity and aesthetics, as Nicola was saying earlier. So to everyone, I highly encourage you. I could speak on my behalf of myself. it is the best thing I've done for my personal life, my family life, and for my professional life. I will always be grateful to the choices, those two choices I made when I was a student, and then also professionally when I said, let's go. And coming from North America, I was more on the high end and luxury side, but always from a consumption marketing point of view, right? So retail, communication, so on. When I came to Europe, I got behind the scenes.
Right.
And this is
You jump to another level. Yes.
I went to another level, and my understanding of luxury is now at another level, as we say. So, thank you, Niccolò, for all of your insight and your energy.
Thank you, Davide.
And maybe Brianna, perhaps you can tell us what are the questions you want to choose and ask. Maybe I don't know what's the best approach.
I would love to. We've got some questions pouring in. From Gretchen, she's studying in Parsons in New York City and wanted to know if students have studied abroad from Parsons to POLIMODA before.
Yeah, we are in collaboration with Parsons in Paris. We have a course. It's a beautiful course. It's called What City. And I had several students from Parsons because Parsons is a prestigious school, and we are in good relationship with them. And for example, if you want to attend an undergraduate courses in Parsons and then you want to jump for a master in POLIMODA, this is the perfect combination, because again, POLIMODA, as Forbes says, it's the closest school to the factory, to the industry. As Davide told you, in POLIMODA, we teach the student also how to touch a product, how to touch fabric, leather, how to understand what quality is, which is not related to the name of the brand. It doesn't mean that a luxury brand is a luxury product. No, this is something related to the marketing, to the communication. So we can split the conversation between luxury brand and luxury product, which is completely different. And we teach this in POLIMODA. So if you want to come in POLIMODA, you're more than welcome.
Awesome. I'm going to combine a few questions, but overall, people are wanting to know what kind of requirements you guys have for international students to come to POLIMODA, and whereabouts would you live? What does it look like to be a student studying abroad?
Davide, you want to answer or I go?
I can answer a couple of parts. So as far as the living arrangements, Florence as a city is really, really hospitable for foreign students. So there's a lot of universities in Florence. That's another thing. We didn't really talk about that, but Florence is an academic city as well.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of universities. In fact, a lot of American universities have
is the city with the biggest number of international universities. We have the New York University in Florence, Syracuse University, Columbus University, James University, California University, Georgetown University. Yes, they are all in Florence.
And so there's a lot of lodging. That's not a challenge. So the school, for students who apply POLIMODA, the school will often suggest some agencies that the students contact. And in fact, in Italy, often we have, in Europe, we have open houses. We have one coming up in March, and parents will come with their children. And immediately, for many parents, it's like, oh yeah, this is where I want my kids to come, because they see that it's a safe city, it's a small city. They know their children are going to be walking to school or cycling. It's quite straightforward as far as that. So I wouldn't worry about lodging at all. And like I said, there's tons of agencies, and the city is designed today to lodge students. As far as, so that was one question. Brianna, what was the other part to the question? Because I think it was a combo.
I mean, how to attend POLIMODA, which is done, is the process. You can go, I just write the name of the website where you can find all the courses, undergraduate, masters, seasonal. Then you click there is the enrollment process. And the counselor is going to contact you back. Then you're going to have a Skype interview again. This is a very human-centered method. In POLIMODA, it's not about a test and a general test. It's in a conversation with a person. So you're going to have an interview with a leading teacher, or not even leading teacher, professor, maybe Davide, for example. And if you want to attend courses like fashion design or fashion styling or art direction, of course, you have to provide with a portfolio review. Otherwise, for the business side of the courses, it's about the conversation, and then they contact you back and they tell you if you're going to be accepted or not. But again, the procedure? It's a very linear. It's about to talk to the potential students. It's not just a conversation focused on fashion. No. It's in a general conversation. Again, it's important. We are talking about human being, especially if you are young, and you want to attend a course. Of course, you come to POLIMODA to study fashion, so you don't have to be an expert of fashion if you didn't study, or if you're approaching for the first time in a fashion school. Okay.
Yeah, and I think I want to underline something you said. Like, so there's those conversations are happening via Skype. It's almost like an interview process, but in those conversations, the leading teachers or whoever is having that conversation with you is also maybe guiding you in choosing the right program.
Right.
So this is something that I think is very comforting. So if some of you, and which is quite normal, are not sure, should I go more towards merchandising, or am I really a designer? Those conversations will be happening during those Skype interviews. So like Nicolo said, it's quite linear, and you have the support to help you make that decision.
Yeah, and then we offer also scholarship. I invite you to the next open day, which is the 17th of March, and you can find all the information in the website. There's going to be an online open day. Then we will launch the scholarship at the end of the month. And another important point, for example, as Davide said something really, really important, professors are going to guide you, to drive you to the right courses. For example, we have fashion system is desperate in this moment because can't find accessories designers. Realistically, we have received a call from Chanel from Paris 2 weeks ago, asking, would you please send us a student from, this accessories designer? And we don't have accessories designer because the new generation want to be just a general designer. I strictly recommend you to keep under consideration this opportunity, or atelier designer, how to become a pattern maker, which is another important job. You can find job immediately in a second, and the salary is even good. We don't understand why sometimes the new generation want to be just businessman or designer, and then we have hundreds of job profile in between as a merchandiser, product manager, buyer, sustainable manager. Spend some time in our website. Again, POLIMODA is a no-profit school, so our goal is not to convince you to come to our school. It's not mandatory. We are here just giving you an overview about also the job profile. You should spend time. The digital strategists in fashion system, they're constantly researched by fashion brands. And it's amazing because you can travel around the world. It's an amazing job. You can be in the most important fashion city, in the capital, in Europe, in the United States, and not just there. So please, if you have a chance, go see and come to visit us in the website and in the open day. And also, if you can come in person, is even better. I invited Brianna many times, but she told me that she doesn't like Florence, so she doesn't want to come.
I spend a lot of time in Florence.
It's a joke, I know.
Love it.
Yeah.
And gelato, we have to talk about that later.
Yeah.
Okay, next time you come in Florence, David and I will bring you in a good restaurant to taste the real Florentine food.
Switching gears a little bit, I really like this question from Keith. He's curious about the cost of living in Florence. What is it like compared to cities like New York or Los Angeles?
No, it's less.
Yeah,
it's less than New York and Los Angeles.
I just got back, so I was in Montreal until like mid-Jan, and I have to say, and I think our prices are more similar to New York,
United States. Yeah.
I mean, Florence from that point of view is so good. You go for dinner, and I'll just give you an example. You go for dinner, you have a typical pizza or a plate of pasta, and if you want to have something to drink, and you're leaving like 16, 17 euros,
Right.
max 20 for a nice evening out, socializing, same thing. So the cost of living here is not expensive compared to cities like New York.
It's not comparable with New
Not
York, Los
comparable.
Angeles.
You're
No.
also not taking taxis. I mean, Nicolo brought up the word taxi
Right.
earlier. It's like when I come to Florence, there's
Yeah,
2 times I
right.
take a taxi. When I arrive, so from the airport to my apartment, and when I go back home, or if I'm traveling to Paris, and from the apartment to the airport, that random one, the rainy day, and I'm late for something, I might take a taxi. So all those costs don't exist, right? Public transport, some people still prefer to take the bus instead of walking, but if you like walking, you don't have to pay public transport. Food, I mean, Italy is very rich agriculturally, so you have to keep in mind things like your fruits and vegetables don't cost a lot here. So for me, I remember when my brother and my sister-in-law visited a few years back, oh my gosh, they did groceries as if they were here for like 6 months, just because of the cost. They were so like, everything's so inexpensive compared to back home in Montreal, where we have to import so much goods. And so compared to New York, compared to Los Angeles, I think you'll be very pleased for the cost of living. I mean,
but even if you want to rent a room, apartment, I mean, prices are completely different. They are lower than that. POLIMODA is helping with the housing. We are in contact with agency. We can put the student in contact with them, and they can choose the best apartment they want in the center of the city. Again, Florence is very small, so wherever you live, it's easy to reach the school in 10 minutes, 12 minutes. It's not big point. It's not big deal.
Yeah. So that, I think, is something that is also a big draw for young people, because they have a little bit more air to as far as indulging also in their social lives without it being too expensive compared to, I've been to New York many times. It's a great city. But yeah, going out to New York on a Friday night or Saturday night is not so, I mean, yeah, it could get quite expensive. Same thing with Paris and so on. Something else about living in Florence, I think, was asked, and we didn't finish that answer, but living in Florence is really nice. It's also, I mentioned it once, but I do want to highlight it again. In general, I would say it's a very safe city. And so, even I have students that tell me,
it is.
Walking home in the evening, it's very well lit. So one of the buildings, many of them are painted like these beautiful pale yellows and pinks and oranges. The lights are essentially always on. And so you feel the sense of safety. It's also a city that has life. And so there's people outside. So Italians live outside. And so having, people outside also adds to a certain element of safety. So I think this is something that is important mentioning.
Yeah.
And the other thing I saw a question that I thought also was important, and I want to get to it in case we ignore it. We offer, I have to check, or you check on the website, but occasionally we have something called seasonals. So Nicolo, I don't know what's happening.
The seasonal, this is very important. Okay, I just copied the link for the open day, which is the 16th of March. So you can click there, then you can get all the information. You can receive the link for the online open day, the 16th. Another important thing, we have the seasonal course. One of the best seasonal course we have is in collaboration with Broadway in New York with Lorraine Lataro, which is a very famous choreographer. She's taking care about Mrs. Doubtfire, The Devil Wore Prada, and it's 1 month course. It takes 4 weeks. The best students will go to have an internship paid by POLIMODA in New York. And we have several seasonal courses, short courses, 2 weeks short courses. And from fashion brand to fashion design, fashion styling, sustainable fashion. And then we have kids wear, for example. So in order to experience step-by-step POLIMODA of Florence, you can even attend a short course, a seasonal course. We have it in the summer, we have it in April, we have it in November, December, and so in July, September. I recommend you to take a look of this, because this can be an opportunity. Then if you like it, you can then jump in an undergraduate course or master courses. At the end of the month, we will launch intensive courses, 6 months intensive courses. So stay tuned. And again, they are all in collaboration with the protagonist of the fashion system, or in this case, we are talking about costume design. So we are talking about theater and then musical and stuff like that.
Yes, I think Gaed, I saw that question in the chat because you have an 18-year-old and not sure if like 4-year commitment is something that your child would be ready to do. But if seasonal suits you best, there's going to be a variety of options there. And so 1 month in Florence is a great way. That's how I did it in 1999. You know, I had come for 1 month essentially, and that made me realize, okay, this is a place I want to come back to. So you have enough time to get a sense of the city and also of the school.
I think one thing that stands out to me from this conversation is how you guys emphasize how safe and small Florence is in such a good way. I think that that is something that people from Omaha can relate to, because we have a sense of great community here. When I go down the street, I see 12 people that I know, and I'm not even from here. So Omaha is one of those places where people adopt you into their little family. And I think that that's something that people that are comfortable here would also be comfortable with in Florence. And then there's the fact that if you want to get outside of your small community, it's so easy to travel in Europe. So you can really see a lot of things once you're over there.
Brianna, I'm an ex-policeman. It's true.
Oh.
I used to be a policeman. Florence is one of the safest cities in Europe. Thank God. I mean, and we want to keep the city like that. You can go at 3 a.m. in the morning in the center of the city with your friend, nobody, especially Americans, nobody's going to touch you, nobody's going to do anything wrong. I mean, you can find a lot of information about how safety is Florence. Yes, it's very safe city. Also because it's a city full of art, so there is a control. Undercover police are going in the center, but again, just to keep everything under control, because we don't, maybe it doesn't happen as someone is shooting in the street, also because it's impossible. In Italy, you cannot buy gun, you cannot buy, this not happen, it's not part of the culture in Italy in general, but see in Florence specifically.
So do we want to talk about gelato for a second?
Yeah, because gelato, okay, Florence, okay, many people knows that Florence is the capital of the cradle of the Renaissance, but Florence invented, first of all, the first bank in the world, 1391, the first bank word in Florence, the first check born in Florence, the fork born in Florence, the fragrance born in Florence, then Caterina de' Medici, when she became the Queen of France. Caterina de' Medici was a Florentine family, no? She moved to France. She brought in France the fragrance, and France invented the parfum, but the base come from here. And then the ice cream. The ice cream, we have this strong competition with Sicily, you know, because also in Sicily invented the ice cream, also in Florence. So the quality of the ice cream in Florence is original. It's amazing. We have the festival, which is an international festival in the summer, and it's one of the capital of the ice cream. And then probably, you know, the famous, this is what I said to David last week. Remember, David, when we were talking about the profiterole, the famous cake, the one with the beignet, the cream inside. Yeah, we call bongo, was invented here in Florence. So there is also this strong tradition on cakes, you know? And Brianna, again, when you come here, we will bring you to eat a real ice cream, the original ice cream, you will be shocked. Yeah, for sure.
And everyone, you're going to have to resist going into your freezers and treating yourselves and wait till you make this visit to beautiful Florence. And now I'm tempted to walk home and stop for gelato.
I'm obsessed with gelato too, with cream, specifically with cream. Yes, yes.
I think this is a true Italian experience too, where we're talking about art, fashion, education, and then at the end, we find a way to include food, joy, laughter.
Yeah.
And this is the Italian way, if you want, the Florentine way.
Yeah, but David, you know, do you say in English spoiled? When you make people spoiled, do you say viziati? right?
Yeah,
Correct.
we think so, yeah.
Italians are leader to anything related to spoiled, wine, food, fashion, cars, because we like the lifestyle, we like to the Italian lifestyle. I think it's something fun, something enjoyable.
Oh, of course, when the sun is out, everybody's outside, and when there's an opportunity for a treat, and everything though is in balance, and that's the thing that's also quite beautiful. So there's an ability to indulge and still not, stay balanced, and I think this is very special. I guess, Brianna, I think if there's any additional questions, I guess a starting point for everybody would be, again, like Nicolo said a few times, check out the POLIMODA website. There's so much information for you there. And if you need more information, don't hesitate to write. And somebody at the school will be more than happy to get back to you, and they will get back to you very soon, and then guide you to the next steps. And then, yeah, anybody join our webinar or the open day that's happening online for more information.
Yeah.
And yeah, we hope to meet you in Florence soon.
In person.
Person. Yes.
I hope so.
I'll be
there. Okay, Brianna, we wait for you. We will wait for you. Definitely.
Thank you guys for such a wonderful talk. If you guys have any additional questions, you can reach out directly to Omaha Fashion Week, and I'm happy to get you connected. But like they said, the website is a great starting point, and that open day call will give you a lot of more specific information about getting involved.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Thank you.